Hello everyone, and welcome back to another R GIS statistics lecture video. And in this video, we're going to walk through the second order neighborhood statistic, specifically Ripley's K. And what I want to do is this is going to look very similar to the G statistic because it's the same package. The function looks incredibly similar, except it's cast instead of jest. So we're going to kind of skip the idea of plotting and all that kind of stuff, and we're just going to jump right into actually running the code. So we're going to assume here that we've done all of our sort of preamble with the plotting and whatnot. So again, just to make sure that everything runs correctly, I'm going to call in the New Haven dataset. I'm going to make sure that we have our variable breach. Now, just like with the gstat, we're going to be using a function from spatstat. But in this case, we're going to be using a function called KEST, Ripley's K. I'm going to put a question mark so that we get the help. All right, so you're going to see, if you remember back to the back to our previous video on the G statistic, right? This looks very similar. We have the big X argument, which is our PPP object, and then the only other thing you have to consider here is this correction. And basically the correction that you're going to typically want to do is this isotropic correction. Okay? So you're going to want correction equals isotropic. So what you're going to do before you do anything else is you have to convert, again, breach, again, is an SP object, as is any object from the New Haven dataset, as is any object that you read in with read OGR. So you're going to have to convert that to a PPP. So we're going to call breach underscore PPP. And we're going to use the as.ppp function from spatstat. Actually, let me specify that. We're using the as.ppp function from spatstat. And we pass in as an argument this big X, which is the data that we want to convert, which is, again, our breach data set. So if we run this, we now have a PPP object. So just like with the G function, or the first order nearest neighbor, I'm going to call this kstat. We're going to call this spatstat function, or the spatstat package. And then from spatstat, we're going to call the KEST, or K estimator. And again, this takes in as capital X the data that we want to estimate, which is going to be our breach PPP. And then we need to pass in the correction. And again, we want that isotropic. Okay. So if we run this, we don't get any errors. Let's look at what kstat actually looks like. So again, this is the same sort of concept as before. We have three slots. We have the distance. We have our theoretical Poisson. This is the expected value. And then we have our isotropic corrected estimate. Okay. So just like with gstat, we can plot this. And then we'll do that down here so we can see it over here. So just like with our estimate of G, we have two lines we need to be concerned with. The first is this dashed red line in this case, which is our expected, right? This is our Poisson estimate. And then we have our solid black line up here, and this is our calculated K. And so you're going to interpret this just like we talked about in the conceptual videos in terms of whether your data is clustered or dispersed. at some distance. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.